I'm Ella Myers. Oh wait, yes, hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
We apologize.
Yeah. Okay, is everyone, are judges, are you guys ready? Okay, I'm Ella Myers.
I'm Mark Mall.
I'm Ella Kirk.
I'm Joseph Gruska.
I'm Josh Reeves, and we are the Polecats. So, ABC Farm is a 2,000-acre farm that grows mostly alfalfa. Lately, they've noticed a decrease in the quality of their crop, and they worry about the longevity of their farm. They believe that agriculture is the backbone of our society. So what they want is to be a part of the beginning of a sustainable future in agriculture. That's why they hired us. We are here to create a robust farm that ensures the integrity of the land, the long-term profitability of the farm, and the resilience of this community. My teammates will outline how we will implement a new organic production system, ensure integrity of natural resources here, and develop community partnerships to achieve this goal.
So, the Chavez family currently owns 2,000 acres. 1,500 of these acres for the past 50 years has been used exclusively for alfalfa. Now, recent data has shown that the alfalfa is losing its fertility, and the contract that the Chavez family has to sell its alfalfa is running out with 1 year left. When this contract runs out, we would like to implement a new organic production system. This production system will integrate new crops, rotate them seasonally, and overall diversify the crop community. That's 1,500 acres. That leaves 90 acres of rangeland for the cattle, 10 acres for the Chavez's home and other environmental structures, and 400 acres that holds a forest on the west side of the stream. Now this forest, however, is extremely dense, and the stream is running into possible pollution problems. We would like to implement new strategies that will steer away from the probability of pollution to the possibility of resource innovation. This will create a robust, resilient system, one that minimizes leakage, maximizes efficiency, and brings us into a new era of innovation.
In our sustainable organic production system, we plan on implementing conservation tillage. Conservation tillage seeks to reduce the use of energy and water, and also ensure the health of soil. Conservation tillage is defined as any tillage system that leaves at least 30% of residue on the soil. The practice we plan on using is called ridge till. Two parallel lines are formed on the beds. The tops of the ridges tilled, which makes for aeration and loosening of the soil due to the tilling, but also keep some of the benefits of conservation tillage, which are decreased erosion. When the soil is not loosened, you keep your organic matter and improve your soil fertility. Sediment is the #1 pollutant in America. By using this conservation tillage and decreasing erosion, we hope to mitigate that problem in our nearby water sources. Using conservation tillage makes for lower fuel costs and less CO2 output. And the ability of the soil to hold water is increased. Another practice we plan to implement is crop rotation, where different families of plants follow each other in a planned rotation. This balances nutrient demand, so plant-specific nutrients are not over-depleted. It also manages pests, weeds, and disease. Systems such as crop rotation can use cover cropping. Cover cropping decreases erosion by holding in the soil during the off-season. We plan to use legumes as cover crops, which fix nitrogen into the soil so plants can use it. We also plan to implement winter squash so that we can get a crop during the off-season. There are several problems of pests on this farm, grasshoppers. We will use integrated pest management, which is a thoughtful, life cycle-based approach to pest management that uses natural pest predators through biological pest management. We also plan on implementing windbreaks and contour plowing to decrease the loss of soil through wind. In the end, anything done to reduce erosion, it is important to remember, preserves organic matter and reduces the need for fertilizers. In our farm, we hope to ensure profit while decreasing our reliance on synthetic inputs.
The Chavezes have readily available resources around their farm and within their farm. One of these resources is water. There's a waterway in the lower left-hand corner of the map that we have drawn. There are also 2 ditches that we can readily make into a wetland. Wetlands are good because it biofiltrates the soil and overall improves the quality of the water. During the rainy seasons, we can provide basins for both the pasture and the field to provide water for the cows and for the crops. The natural infiltration is great for the soil, and the subject irrigation is most efficient, in addition to the existing wells that we already had placed that were there originally, the 3 there. There's also 400 acres of forest in the bottom left-hand corner. This has revenue potential. We plan to get a partnership with the local logging business within or around the area of the local cities and the area around this establishment. This is important because it will thin the forest and it will encourage wildlife to come and harvest the nutrients. This provides the opportunity for ecotourism, which allows people to come and see the amazing insects, predators, the pollinators, and the wildlife that also improves the quality of our crops. Organic farming is the new trend as 2014. The USD says that over 1,000 chefs in the country consider the local food the biggest trend in 2014. We need to try to build a farmer's market. By using our crops to give locally to the nearby cities, the restaurants will be able to exchange with us their used oil. This oil, in turn, we can use for biofuel, which will give us less reliance on fossil fuels. This is good for the local and organic market. Another USD program called the KYF, Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food, connects people with where their food comes from, and it brings us more revenue because they like funding this. More statistics say that 85% of all consumers interviewed by the NGA, the National Grocers Association, is part by whether it grew locally or not. So it's great to start getting the word out there that we are growing locally, and it's great for the neighborhood city restaurants.
As my teammates have mentioned, we are striving to create a robust system that has little leakage through the system and is closed. Some of the ways we are going to do this is through building greenhouses. But these aren't just going to be any greenhouse. They're going to be passive solar, meaning that they face an area that gets the most sunlight. They are going to have radiant floor heating, and we're going to have a big tank in there, and the sunlight will filter through because it will be clear, and then it will heat up the water, and then the water will be pumped through a solar pump through the floor, heating up the beds, and then it will come back around, cool off, and go back into the tank. And as in our drawing, you can see we have fish. One cool, innovative idea for tanks, or solar tanks, is to have fish. And you can have profitable fish, such as like tilapia. And you can sell these in your local market, and therefore improve revenue. Also, a great thing about having fish in your greenhouse, which I think none of you guys have ever thought of, is that the manure from the fish can get cycled down, and we can use a biodigester, and then the compost from that biodigester we can put onto our crops. Another idea that we had was, as I mentioned earlier, the biodigester. And a biodigester is where you put the manure from fish, or as in this case, cows, since they have cows, and you put it into the device, and there's bacteria in there, and they start to digest the manure, and as they digest it, they release methane gas, and you can collect the methane gas and then use it to make a profit. And then, in turn, as I said earlier, the compost can be used to fertilize your crops. One thing about innovative ideas is that they draw people in, especially if they are a robust system and profitable. A good idea creates change, creates a ripple effect for sustainability.
So another concern that the Chavez family has is the longevity of their farm. They want it to last. So speaking long term, we would like to expand this greenhouse system to a number that is adequate and meets the farming needs of the Chavez family. Once our sustainable system is in place, there are two things that we need to keep this system sustainable: labor and monitoring. This is why we are going to encourage the Chavez family to offer internships to the local community and partner with the local high school so that the community members can come in and learn to monitor the soil health, the aquatic health, forestry, and wildlife diversity. Another thing is that the community members can then be in the farm learning about the field of sustainable agriculture. This way, we have the data needed for year-to-year assessments on the environmental health of the farm without spending any money. And we have educated the community about sustainable agriculture.
There are many problems facing this world today. These include climate change, deforestation, and degradation of our natural resources. So what are we to do? E.O. Wilson said that the greatest challenge of the 21st century is to raise people everywhere to a decent standard of living while preserving as much of the rest of life as possible. As my teammates have outlined, we have implemented a plan to ensure the economic and social well-being of the farmers and this community, while also fighting for the future of this world. We want our children to have the same opportunity to this land, and it starts with what we do now. Thank you. We'll now take your questions.
So what we're doing is the judges can introduce themselves and then ask you your question.
John Garlish with the Bernalillo County Extension. I work with a lot of beginning farmers, disadvantaged farmers on business production planning, and also connecting farmers to sell local produce into the schools and other places. So how well this topic fits in.
That is already fun.
So my question kind of revolves around that, as well as with the greenhouse. And looking at your cropping schedules, as well as with your crop rotation, as well as with labor, you addressed a little bit with the farmer internship program, but looking at long-term and actually long-term planning, how are you going to address the labor intensiveness of, especially with fruit and vegetable production, planting, harvesting, post-harvesting and getting it to market, and keeping that consistent? If you're having a lot of interns, it's going to be a lot of turnover and consistency problems.
Do you mind if we consult with us?
Yes.
Well, for one, we plan on implementing CSA to the farm so that some of the labor can be done by the people who are receiving their food. They can pick their own food.
Secondly, in regards to the interns, at our high school we actually do internships on Fridays, and so we're very familiar with how it works. And one method that you can do is actually having 1 year of an unpaid internship, and then you can come back to the next year and be paid. And so then, since they're students, they're younger, you don't have to pay as much. And so you got 1 year of free labor, and then now that they're trained, they can continue to work, but at a much cheaper price.
I'm Carol Beanie. I'm work for the NRCS and NMACD. And my question, I'm really intrigued by your greenhouse idea, it's very creative. But I want to know if you consider the economic, how are you going to get the seed money? I think it's probably pretty expensive and possibly experimental. I wanted to know if you thought about the economics of establishing one or more greenhouses and then eventually expanding.
Yeah, do you mind if we consult?
Okay, so initially we planned to, as in the problem had stated, is that they're cousins. And so we were planning on perhaps they put in money in for the greenhouses. And then the money that we make off the greenhouses through selling seedlings and just selling the crops that we grow in there and the fish, we'll be able to eventually pay that off.
Thank you.
And my name is Carolyn Sart. I'm a district ranger on the Mountaineer District for the Cedar National Forest. Down the road a bit. And my background is forestry. And with 30 years in the Forest Service, I've got a lot of background in other natural resources. And it's my third time doing this. I was ready for you guys. So, sustainability. You do focus on the stream and take care of the water. So, without soil we can't grow, and without water the soil can't do anything. The heavily dog thicket, dense forest across the road there. Thinning it is good for the wildlife. But you've got two other things that are going on here. You've got the possibility of fire in a dog thicket like that. Ponderosa pine in Pinyon Timber, especially with the drought conditions we have right now. We've got 2 fires going on right now down south of us. What are your plans for, and the other thing, I'm sorry, I'm back, no. If you're familiar with any of the fires that we've had here in New Mexico, the amount of sedimentation, everything that you do over on the farm could be one fire up there. So how do you plan to work with, who do you plan to work with to get the forest in good condition, and how do you plan to implement?
That's an excellent point. So one thing is, I agree with you, we didn't really focus too much on that, but we do have a plan. So logging, coming through and thinning, first removes a large amount of the potential, or the fuel for potential fires. And then once we've done that, we've gone through and taken out as much as we can actually maybe start applying for a NEPA and working with whoever's interested in protecting it. If we have neighbors, people who don't want fire to happen, we can work with the Forest Service and try to actually get prescribed burns. That's something that a lot of people don't like. However, they've proven that they do work, and this is a small enough area that you can really keep it close, and the prescribed burns will also allow it to take out the brush, the underbrush, and all the potential fuel, putting the nutrients back in the soil, and we'll have done that after the logging, and so there's less potential for it to break out into a large fire. And then hopefully after we've gone through a prescribed treatment, then our forest will be in a much healthier shape.
Excellent answer.
Thank you for your time and
Great job.
thank you. What's up?
We don't need that now?
Yeah, thank you. I don't know where they you guys are made for this stuff.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was nice to meet you.